Welcome to episode 64 of the Gambots podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and this is my co-host.
It's Christian.
On this week's episode, Christian and I both watched the Netflix original Six Underground. Christian watched the recently released The Invisible Man, and we're going to go into some video game news. But first, Christian, you and I both watched Six Underground. Now, this is a Netflix original directed by Michael Bay and starring Ryan Reynolds. This movie was, I feel like Michael Bay distilled down to his pure essence.
Oh yeah, we brought Michael Bay down to its absolute maximum.
There was a scene in the first 20 minutes where a set of bricks hit a set of steel pipes and there was an explosion. I literally rewinded because I was like, did I miss something? Why did that explode?
Oh yeah, there were explosions on everything. Yeah, it was a very Michael Bay movie, especially the beginning.
So I would love to explain this movie, but the movie does, you actually, if you do not watch a preview on it, you have no idea what this movie is about until about 46 minutes into the movie. Did you, I was timing this because the first 20 to 25 minutes of this is just a chase scene, like a car chase scene.
If you had told me that car chase lasted 3 hours, I would have believed you.
It is such a long scene. It's a car chase through Rome.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're driving through museums and destroying statues that are probably 1,000 years old.
Yeah, and not only is it 20 minutes, there are probably 10 to 15 slow-mo shots in that time frame, if not more. I might be going low on my estimation of how much slow motion not only is in this movie, but is in the first 20 minutes.
Okay, yeah, so I do want to get into what this movie is actually about, but before we do that, slow-mo. There is no cinematic continuity at the beginning of this movie. I stopped paying attention at a certain point, so I don't know if it continues to be this bad, but there is a scene where and it's incredibly slow-mo, so they make painfully sure that you're aware that the bright green car that Dave Franco is driving gets completely trashed on the driver's side. They scrape up against a garbage truck or something, and the side gets all scraped up. He loses his driver's side mirror, and then 2 minutes later they show the driver's side again in slow-mo, and it is fine.
Yeah.
The side mirror is there. There is no paint damage. Then they get into a slow-mo donut that they're going around like a roundabout, and Ryan Reynolds sticks his head out the window to yell at somebody. Then they do a wide-angle shot, and the window's closed. And then they do a close-up shot again, and he's back out the window again yelling at somebody. And so, how much work was done on this? If you're going to do these incredibly slow-mo shots and make sure that the audience is able to see every frame, make sure that the frames are consistent.
Yeah, I mean, I did not notice those, but when you pointed them out, it makes it more obvious. I did think a couple of the slow-mo shots were funny, like when they almost hit the baby and then they have the same thing with the dogs, like the double take. I thought that was funny, but they had way too much slow motion on this.
Yes, oh Lord. So the movie itself is about 6 people who all either intentionally or unintentionally fake their own deaths, and so now they can operate as ghosts and do kind of vigilante spy work around the world. The trailer made it seem like this was an established team who have been doing this for a while. And you jump into the movie and find out immediately that, oh no, they are all very new and bad at this.
Yeah, and so the trailer also makes it seem like he's a Batman-style character, like a billionaire who just wants to do justice. And parts of it make it seem like he's competent, but other parts he does not actually seem very competent at being a vigilante.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds seemed to have a hard time finding his character's tone in this movie. Like you said, part of the time it makes it seem like he's a soldier of fortune, oh yeah, I had $1 billion and I hung out with the CIA a lot because I did defense work, and so they taught me how to do all this stuff. And then other times he's just Deadpool.
Oh my! Every movie that Ryan Reynolds is in since Deadpool now is just like, all right, we're going to have you do a bunch of narration and exposition, and just let you have fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, he was always that kind of sarcastic character even before, but like in this kind of movie, yeah, you feel like he is supposed to take kind of a Bruce Wayne style attack at this, where it's I'm serious and I'm rich, and I have all this weird training that I shouldn't have. But then other times he's like, oh man, I'm so bad at this, and you're like, what? Yeah, it just seemed like he couldn't figure out where he was supposed to be. He was all over the map.
Right. And this movie goes literally 25% of the way through before you actually get an idea of the what the what the plot is by Ryan Reynolds just explaining it very poorly in a diner in a way that doesn't even make sense with glasses, where he's like, we're going to take out a dictator, and to do that we need to kill 4 generals, and he stacks them up, but he doesn't knock anything down. He's like, when we just remove him and put in our own. It made no sense.
Yeah.
And this movie, Christian, I don't know if you noticed this, I think they're ambitious, because I think they're setting this up for a 9-part series, because they're like, we have 9 of the worst people in the world that we need to kill. Here's number 1. And the entire first movie is just about this one guy. I have a feeling that they want to do sequels off this.
I did not hear the number 9 in there. I was sure they were setting it up for a sequel that like just it's a very origin story movie where like, oh yeah, we finally got our groove, now we can do this more often kind of ending, which by the end of this movie I would watch another one. But 9 of them is incredibly ambitious.
I might be wrong on 9. It might have been 8, but it was some number that was close to 10.
Yeah, that's wild.
In the feel of this movie, it's like you had mentioned that this is very much an origin story, and I think it's too much of an origin story. They focus on so much on these random characters' backstories who I don't have any connection to, and they try to make you care about them. Like, this feels like the 2020, or I guess 2019 take on the A-Team.
Yeah, it's like A-Team meets Oceans, kind of. But did they miss one of them? Because I got partial backgrounds on the CIA spook. I got a partial background on the parkour guy.
The killer, the assassin, or whatever, yeah.
I got a very short background on him. But I don't remember any background on the doctor.
They did not do any background on the doctor or on Dave Is it Dave Franco? James Franco's brother, the guy who died in the beginning. 6, we don't get any background on. And we get the briefest of backgrounds on the soldier number 7, where he's just disenfranchised.
Yeah. Like, he seemed to be like a secondary protagonist. Like, he was like the straight man that they brought in to kind of explain everything to. So we got more on him than we did on anybody other than Ryan Reynolds. But yeah, like, I was racking my brain at dinner tonight because I was talking about the movie, and I could not for the life of me remember any backstory on the doctor. I think she was 4, maybe.
No, she had no backstory, and she really did not play a part in the movie.
Yeah, very little. Besides, very poorly conducting surgery in the back of a speeding car at the beginning, which it seemed like all she really did during that surgery was scream over and over, "I'm doing surgery back here."
Yeah, she did not do much in the movie otherwise. She was the most forgettable of all the characters.
Did you recognize her?
No, I did not. I wasn't paying that close of attention.
She was the good witch in Good Omens.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. The like great granddaughter of whoever. Okay. No, I did not realize that.
Because she was semi-familiar to me. It was bugging me, so I had to look it up. So, I mean, there is room to expand this world now. If they do want to do sequels, we could definitely get a more expansive backstory on most of these characters, or any backstory at all on her. They kind of make a joke about nobody knows what Ryan Reynolds' deal is, and so we only get real snippets of that. So there's definitely room for expansion. I don't know if it's going to be as wide as they want it to be.
Yeah. Parts of this movie bug me though. Like I don't feel like they understand how just certain things in this world work because he's like, "Oh, we're all dead. They can't arrest us." And it's just like, "Well, you can still arrest them." And they still have like if any of these people have ever been arrested, there's a good chance they have fingerprints, DNA swabs, anything like that. And also, being dead's very inconvenient. I don't understand how Ryan Reynolds still has access to his billions of dollars unless he'd been storing it away. But it didn't seem like he planned on faking his death.
That was my biggest problem. Like, yeah, unless they keep showing him going to that, like, I don't know, it was like a toolbox full of files. Unless he's got a drawer full of like $100 million, there's no way he has access to his bank accounts.
No. And also, man, unless he invested all in crypto or something before he died.
And I mean, they even kind of address it because of they're like, we're ghosts. No one will ever know who we are. And then at like the 50-minute mark, the bad guy's lawyer is like, oh yeah, check. We have a picture of this woman. She's supposed to be dead. And so it's like, okay, well then you know who she is.
Right. Man, that's the whole thing is they did not. I don't think they took the right angle on that. And also another part that really bugged me is they're all dead. How are they traveling in and out of different countries? I think they briefly explain it where they're like, we flew really low into Hong Kong so no one noticed us.
Yeah, that's how it works.
I don't know, man. Just because they're going literally around the world very easily.
Yeah, I mean, flying low will help you avoid radar, but like you still have to land somewhere, and people have eyes.
Right.
You
and
can't
I imagine
just fly into an airport and be like, we snuck in.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not like they are sneaking into a very barren area. They're sneaking into Hong Kong, which is a very crowded island.
Yeah. I mean, the magic of editing.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of editing, Christian, how did you like the use of quick cuts in this one?
Ooh, there were quite a lot of them.
Next to slow-mo, this is probably the most aggravating thing I think of watching this movie.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it reminded me of the scene that was going around from Bohemian Rhapsody,
yeah,
where they showed this. It was like there was no reason that any of these people even had to be on set together.
Yeah. Oh,
if they're gonna do this many quick cuts, it could have just been like, all right, this is Forrest's day at the restaurant. Just none of their schedules are lining up, so we'll just shoot them all individually and make it look like they're talking to each other.
Yes. So let's get into the movie a little bit more. So I think you can really break this movie down into three parts. It's the Rome chase scene, the breaking into Hong Kong, and then the final fight with the dictator of Turkestan. So the basic premise of this one is they're hunting down a bad guy who is the ruler of Turkestan, which I think is supposed to be Syria, right? Like, that's what it felt like.
Yeah, it's close enough.
And they are like, we need to go kill his 4 generals, and then we're going to kidnap his democracy-loving brother and put him in and start a revolution. That's the entire plot of the movie, and that's what they go for. I think they're really cheapening how hard it is to start a revolution in that country.
Yeah, and I mean, this guy who's supposed to be, like, brilliantly diabolical sent his 4 most powerful generals to a hotel in Vegas all together, and he wasn't,
right.
Like, and there was no discussion of, like, maybe I shouldn't send, like, my entire line of succession to one place.
And honestly, Christian, I didn't know those were the 4 generals. I thought more of this movie would be like finding them.
Oh yeah,
they killed them in like 5 minutes. Like that plot point was pretty much did not need to exist.
It definitely, the way they were pitching this at whatever meeting they were at the time, it sounded like we're going to get General Number 1.
Right.
And like we'll do fetch quests for the other 3 as we go. But nope, they were all there together.
Yes. Speaking of them going into Nevada and killing the generals, how awesome was the assassin's tennis disguise?
Oh my god, that was so funny.
Best disguise of the movie by far.
Yeah, when he came rolling in that long hair and the headband, I did start laughing pretty hard. That was about the time that I started actually getting into this movie.
Yeah, because it doesn't take itself that seriously.
Yeah.
When I was watching it, this really felt like a classic Lionsgate film from like not classic, but from like the late 2009, 2010, those kind of movies where it's way more style than substance.
Yeah.
And that's just how this movie felt, because like the Hong Kong scene where they go to uh, kidnap the dictator's brother, like it was a pretty fun action scene. They roll in, they attack this hotel. You have the idea of like the stakes involved, and it's all the way up on top of a building. So they have a couple different components to it, but every action scene in this movie seemed to just last 10 minutes too long. They could have easily cut this movie by 30 minutes.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like the hiding in the swimming pool was like fairly fun. He shot the thing to give him an air hole. That was neat. Like there was a lot of cool stuff done in this movie, but yeah, it definitely seemed like you said, it was more style than substance. So it seemed like the coolness was the point more than like the
Right.
actual story itself.
And when they're invading Hong Kong, they were just headbutting people downstairs and knocking them out. He was literally just punching the brother over and over again who was on their side, and he couldn't knock them out. I was just thinking, should have headbutted him, because that seems to work out, on everyone else.
Well, did it seem to you like the hitman was an idiot?
Yeah, I think that was the point. I think he was supposed to be like another secondary main character, because he had an entire like love story arc.
Yeah, a love story and like a family story.
Yeah.
They gave him, without showing us much backstory, they gave him a lot to do in this movie. Like, not necessarily plot-wise, but just like as a character for his development, which is crazy because yeah, he was the dumbest.
He seemed the most one-dimensional.
Yeah, and he's sitting in the car trying to learn the language for wherever it was that they were, but then he didn't notice that his gas mask was broken.
Right.
Yeah, very strange.
But he's apparently a very skilled assassin. I remember just watching that Hong Kong scene and just thinking, I cannot believe there's 40 minutes left in this movie.
Yeah.
So finally, what did you think about the bad guy in this, the dictator of Turkestan?
I don't know. He seemed like, I mean, I want a little something out of my villains. I don't want them to be evil just for the sake of being evil, and that definitely seemed like what this was. There was no like motivating anything. There was no like, I have to be in control because of this and this and this, or like, even if it was just, I have to be in control because I'm a narcissist and like that's just my psychology. It was just like, oh no, gas him, who cares?
Yeah, I thought he was a little bit bland for a villain, but I thought Michael Bay did a good job of making him evil. Like when they did the gas attacks, I thought that was probably the most moving scene in the movie, because that happened in Syria 2 years ago, of a dictator most likely gassing his own people, and just like the horrors that a gas attack can cause.
Oh yeah, the gassing at the hospital was a brutal scene for sure. Like that kind of shocked me because that comes almost immediately after the nonsense Rome car chase, and I was like, ooh, what is happening?
And that scene is the most out of place in the movie. Like that's like an actual commentary on the world, and everything else is like, yeah, the world's bad, but we're having fun out here shooting guys. So they finally get into Turkestan. The last big scene happens on the boat where they turn it into a magnet, and this is when Ryan Reynolds seems his most incompetent.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's they go through this heart to heart moment where it's like you have to let us be a part of your found family or whatever, and number 7 says something to Ryan Reynolds like, you got a soul, you got to let it show. And then after that, he's Deadpool. For the rest of the movie, he's just goofy. And so
Yeah.
I don't know if that was like, oh, it's me coming out of my shell. It just made it seem like halfway through the movie, he decided to be a different character.
Yeah, he was all over the place. I don't know how much I liked the boat scene. It seemed like the rules for it were all over the place, where the magnets only affected part of the boat, not the entire boat, and also they're just killing the chefs on board with like knives flying everywhere.
It's like he could make one side or the other be magnetic, but not both of them at the same time. So he just kept like shooting people from one wall to the other wall to the other wall. And I guess they were wearing metal body armor. Is that something that they said that I missed? Because otherwise there would be no reason for just people to stick to the wall.
Yeah, they had to be, but they had random people there, so it was like assumed it was bracelets or whatever or necklaces. It definitely they had some form of body armor because I remember one guy pulled it off and he fell.
Okay, yeah.
So there was something to do with the body armor. The weapons made the most sense. But yeah, it only affected parts of the boat. Like they go and do it on the deck and then they go into the kitchen. The kitchen's fine.
Yep.
And then they do it to the kitchen.
Well, I think my favorite part of the first couple times they use it is Ryan Reynolds turns it on. Well, first of all, he drops and breaks his phone, which, fine. And then he finally manages to turn it on. Everybody gets stuck to the wall except the good guys because they were prepared. But then they don't do anything about it.
No.
Like, I had assumed the plan was like, okay, we'll stick everybody to the wall and then we'll shoot them.
Yeah.
But they stick everybody to the wall and they're like, wow, that was cool. And then the magnet wears off and everybody just falls down. And I was like, wow, what a wasted opportunity.
Yeah. That scene doesn't make it to... How many guards were... Number one, why...
So many.
So many guards on this boat, but this is... The leader of Turkistan's backup plan is to go to a yacht.
Yep. But then...
Not to, like, a mountain bunker. A yacht.
Well, then allow me to point out his second backup plan, which is to go to another smaller boat.
Yes. Oh my...
And he's
just
straight
some
up,
of the choices on that.
He straight up says, like, I have a panic room on this, and they go into that, and then immediately the hitman is like, oh, I found the back way into the panic room. Panic rooms shouldn't have a back entrance.
Also, they didn't need to really enter the boat. They could blow up the boat instead of magnets, just explosives, and then he would have sunk in a panic room.
At any time. Those bombs were in place before the team got onto the boat. Making it onto the boat was completely pointless.
Yes, like, they could have been like, oh, he's out at sea, no one can help him. Boom. Boat sinks.
Yep. Oh, wild. And it seemed like the boat making it out of the harbor was not part of the plan. Because at one point, the one girl was like, oh, no, we're moving. And like,
but then it was, because they had a helicopter that rescued them and captured them. Yeah. The last scene, I think, was... I think you dislike the first scene the most. I think this was the one that was like, oh, boy, this is dragging and making the movie worse for me.
Yeah, I mean, the end fight was nonsensical. But at that point, I was wrapped up into it enough that I wasn't really paying attention. Like, all this stuff occurred to me after the fact. But, I mean, besides the let's not shoot the people who are incapacitated. But
yes.
Yeah. Then they put the brother on TV, and he's, like, freaking out, having an anxiety attack about he can't do this, he can't do this, he can't do this. Then he goes live, and he's like, I got it.
Yeah.
He delivers a one-line speech, and then the entire country's like, let's revolution.
Yes.
Muse did the entire soundtrack to this movie.
Did they really? I didn't look into it.
I heard, I think, at least 3 Muse songs. That was another thing. The music, very weird in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised. The budget on this was only $150 million.
That is shockingly low for this.
That seems low for Michael Bay.
Yeah.
So do you know how this fared with the critics?
Not super well. Critics gave it a 36% on Rotten Tomatoes. Audience is sitting at a 61%, so people liked it better. I'd probably put myself somewhere between those numbers. What about you?
Yeah, I would probably put this around a 40 or 50. This seems like it would work better as a TV series where you could introduce the characters a little bit more, and then you have a bad guy of the week or something like that, like a limited run series. The movie was 2 hours and 10 minutes. It felt like they tried to cram way too much background into it for the characters. Had way too long of action scenes, so everything just felt bloated and kind of bored me. I really honestly think this movie probably could have been streamed down to an hour and 40, hour and 50 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. This movie could absolutely be like a mission of the week, hour long A-Team style TV show. Like, even if it wasn't a limited run, just keep bringing it back for as long as you can. I was so off board at the beginning of this, and then by the end, I kind of found myself saying, like, I would watch another one of these or another one or two if they were this same kind of, if it was like it was after the opening scene the whole way through. I'd be like sucked in enough. But I do think it would be served better as a TV show.
Same. And I would probably watch another one. I like Ryan Reynolds enough that I would watch it. I actually didn't really care for any of the other characters that much. So they would probably be the determinant of if I watch a third one, but I would give it the benefit of the doubt and check out a second one. I would.
Oh no, go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
I was gonna say I would suggest an audience member watch this movie if they like just dumb action movies.
Yeah, 100%.
And you have like a Saturday night free. Like, there's not. It's not pure fun, but it is interesting enough to watch if you are bored.
The one thing I just saw in my notes, we didn't talk about how for a brief moment this turned into the Assassin's Creed movie.
Oh my gosh, in Rome?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, parkour guy is up at the top of that cathedral, and as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh yeah, I've climbed up there.
I was watching that, and my initial thought was, I think that was an Assassin's Creed Brotherhood.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely, because, I mean, I've just been playing those games, so I recognize that immediately. And yeah, and then he's up there, and then he slides down from the top, and I was like, oh god, this is just Assassin's Creed 2 now.
Yeah, that actually was a pretty cool shot if they had him going down, how they did that, like, continuous shot of him down. I don't know if he really did that, but if he did, that was a pretty cool shot. Would you recommend an audience member check this out, Christian?
Yeah, I'm gonna have largely the same review you had. It's dumb, and it definitely doesn't hold up under any kind of scrutiny. But yeah, if you're just looking for a way to fill like an hour and a half, 2 hours, this will get it done.
All right, Christian, this week you watched the newly released The Invisible Man. I only recently heard about this movie when I saw a preview for it, I think in Birds of Prey, but I'm not positive if it was that one or not. My initial question on this is this part of like the dark monster universe that started with The Mummy and Tom Cruise, or is this just a horror movie?
It's just a psychological thriller. It has nothing to do with... I think The Mummy did so poorly that they scrapped Dark Universe after a single movie.
Okay, so I was a little bit unclear on that, and I was like, I don't know if the Invisible Man would technically be in that, but it seems like that character is in the public domain at this point, so I just wanted to clarify on that. So this is just a psychological thriller.
Yeah,
then.
So what I suspect, and I should have Googled this to see, I could see that this was a plan to be part of the Dark Universe, and then they just took out all of like the connective tissue and released it as a standalone.
Gotcha. So what is the premise of this movie then, other than there's an invisible man?
Yeah, so Elizabeth Moss is in an abusive relationship with this like tech savant, and the movie opens with her like escaping from his house compound in the dead of night, and then a week later he kills himself. And so she is named in his will, and she goes to collect her money, and after that, then weird things start happening that leads her to believe that since he was a pioneer in the field of optics, he has somehow managed to make himself invisible and fake his death to torment her for leaving.
Okay, so the question just raging through my head while watching this, other than is this part of the Dark Universe, they made it seem like he was a ghost. Couldn't she just throw flour or something on him? Like, was he incorporeal or was he just invisible?
No, he's just invisible.
Okay.
And in fact, they do throw things on him many times.
And so you can then see him.
Yeah, kind of. So In the original Invisible Man story, I don't remember what it was, but I don't remember how it happened, but his body was invisible and he wore like bandages and clothes so that people could see
Hmm.
him. In this, it's the exact opposite. He is still just a dude, but he has an invisibility suit.
Oh my gosh, he has like the Harry Potter.
It's not a cloak, it's like a suit. It looks like
Yeah.
man, it's crazy looking. It looks like it's made out of black honeycomb. It's a bunch of like hexagons, but it's like a skin tight suit that goes over the entire body, and it's covered with cameras that I guess just project what's behind you onto the front.
It's just cameras?
Oh yeah, like it's like I said, it's covered in these little hexagons, and at the middle of each hexagon is camera, and I guess around the camera are like screens. I don't. It's not well described. Like you have no real concept of how it works. They just keep yelling, "He's got a suit covered in cameras," and everyone's like, "You're crazy, Elizabeth Moss."
Of things, that seems like, oh yeah, he's a rich guy who was developing a suit covered in cameras. For being like, I think he might be around with a suit covered in cameras for everyone just to go, no, probably
Yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah. It's not like he's like some mad genius who dabbled in everything. They make it very clear he was a pioneer and a genius in the field of optics. Like his entire thing was just light and like fiber optics and everything else. And so the idea that he would have created an invisibility suit is not totally outside the realm of possibility for this movie. But every single person she says that to, they're like, okay.
I mean, if she was really worried and thinking he was around, she could totally have home aloned her house with
Well,
traps.
that's what she kind of does at one point.
Good,
She
good.
sits in the corner of a room and she knows he's there, and so she like fills the room with coffee grounds so she can see him coming.
This is the part where I think she just, exercises her Second Amendment right and just sprays the room with an automatic rifle. I mean,
Well, like this movie has one jump scare, at least for me, and she's up in the attic and she hears like the ladder moving around, and so she throws a bucket of paint like through the trap door, and he's standing on the ladder. And so like you get this moment where it's like there's nothing there, boom, there's a head. And I did jump, I'm not gonna lie. And but then he just runs to the sink and washes the paint off his suit, and then he's perfectly invisible again. Like not even to the
this
shower, he washes off his head in the sink, and there is no like residual paint on his suit at all.
this movie's premise, and I know we're not getting into it. It just is. I always thought the Invisible Man was a stupid character, and the fact that they tried to make it into a movie, it just makes me have so many questions. I like the idea of it being a thriller, like that can totally work, but then there's just so many problems with the Invisible Man as a
Yeah,
character.
I just like we'll get into the Rotten Tomatoes in a little bit, I guess, but it's the reviews are so high, and like I cannot for the life of me figure out why. This movie wanted so badly to be a thriller, and it was just so boring.
Yeah, that I mean, as I looked them up before we signed on, we can just do them now and keep talking about it. But the Rotten Tomatoes has the critics at a 91, audience at an 88, which just the premise alone I could not believe. Like I thought this was going to be a dumb horror
It
movie,
was.
and
I would put this movie in the low 30s. Like a 91 and 88 is insane for how boring this movie was. The main character, I mean, I guess Elizabeth Moss is technically the main character, but the titular character is invisible for the middle 90% of this movie. You can see him at the very beginning and at the very end, and that's it. And so all you're treated to is the camera staring at an empty door frame or an empty corner of a room to be like, ooh, something's there. Or the camera's on Elizabeth Moss while she stares at an empty door frame or an empty corner of a room.
yeah, well, I'm giving a lot of advice on how they could have made this better without watching it, but I think a more interesting take where I would have been like, yeah, I would watch that would be a found footage style movie, like Paranormal Activity, where it's just a set camera and things are kind of happening to show there's someone in the house following someone and they don't know it, versus being the thriller where you kind of know the outcome of it.
Yeah, it was so much more boring than it needed to be. And then it takes on a psychological aspect because I guess, like, since the will and all his, like, billions are involved, they're trying to make it seem like she's mentally unstable to try and take her money away. and so they're like, oh, commit her to a psychological institution because she thinks this dead guy is still stalking her. But yeah, at no point is anybody in the movie like, maybe this genius physicist could be invisible.
So what I'm hearing is actually this turns into Sucker Punch. This is the prequel to Sucker Punch.
Oh, I wish. I would have loved to have watched another Sucker Punch. Instead, I watched this turd.
So was there anything redeeming about this movie that you actually liked?
Not really. Like, I
Okay.
it was better than The Boy 2, which is a movie we didn't really discuss, but that was a movie I watched last week that was also incredibly boring but trying to be scary. I didn't jump or scream or react in any way to that movie. I did jump in this one, so it had at least something. But like at a certain point, she damages his suit, and so he's like flickering, and he's on camera, and at which point it's over. Like, you have now proved that you were right, and the rest of this movie is now just like details.
Yeah. So I'm surprised on this. The budget was $7 million. Its box office has been 48 million worldwide.
Yeah.
So good for them. They made their budget back.
I mean, just domestically, they quadrupled their budget. It was 28 million just in the U.S. Like, yeah, good for them, I guess, but don't make any more.
So would you recommend our audience check this out?
I mean, I've talked to people that liked it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just overly critical. Maybe I've seen too many movies now. It's the perils of working in a movie theater. When you see everything that comes out, things become predictable. So maybe I'm coming at it from a cynical place. Like, my mom watched it and she said it was very, like, it was a good thriller, and I was like, we can't have watched the same movie. So, I mean, maybe I just don't know anything, but no, I would not recommend people this.
I will admit I am probably not going to go see this one
for
in
the
theaters.
best. Like, there's somewhere it's like, this is so unbelievably dumb and bad, you have to go watch it, and this is not one of them. You'll just be bored.
Alright guys, and next we're going to talk about 2 bits of video game news. First, Christian, the Final Fantasy VII Remake is coming out in April, and today Square released a demo for the game. I think you can play the first basically hour of the Midgar section. You played Final Fantasy VII, right?
I did, a long time ago. I still have like the 3 or 4 disc combo pack that came out for PS1.
Yes, the 3-disc set for 7. I remember when I got that, I was like, oh, this game's so long. There's 3 discs, 3 CDs for it. But so you can play basically the section, the very first part of the game, which in retrospect takes like 20 minutes of you just getting off the train and going to fighting the Scorpion.
Yeah.
You can play that, and it sounds like they've actually extended that into much more of a game. So I am probably going to check this out because I'm very curious how their combat system works.
Yeah, I'll probably scope it out. I was so disappointed when they said it was going to be released episodically. I'm not really into that kind of stuff, but I am nostalgic enough that I will at least check out what's been released and see if it holds up to my expectations.
Yeah, I'm most interested about this demo because I did not like Final Fantasy 15's battle system. That is the first mainline Final Fantasy game that I've not beaten since, well, I guess 7. Like, I beat 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, and even 13, even though it wasn't very fun. And I could not get through 15. I thought it was boring. I didn't like the battle system, so I am very curious to see if this is better than that. And then also they made a feature in it where you can go into the classic mode, so you don't actually have to play it like the new battle system. You can play it like the original Final Fantasy VII. So I'm very interested to see how they transition between 2 very different styles.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And I'm with you. I don't know if I love the episodic nature of this, especially because there's no real roadmap of when the next game's coming out. And this is basically supposed to be just Midgar, which is the first 5 or 6 hours of the original game.
Yeah, now the first time I played Final Fantasy VII, I made it out of Midgar and kind of no further, and didn't really realize how much of an expansive game it was beyond that. And like when I went back and I finally played it the whole way through, like, yeah, Midgar is like a blip at the beginning of this storyline.
Yeah, it's probably the most memorable just because so much happens in it. It's the biggest map, I guess, of the areas you go into.
Hmm.
But it is like it's not even the full first disc. It's like maybe half of the first disc.
Yeah.
And well, I will say my mind was blown the first time I was playing that because you're like, okay, we're in this city, we're doing it, and then all of a sudden, world map. That was crazy to me. And the first time I played it, I got through there and I got to a part where there's this giant snake in a river or a
Yup.
lake or something. I didn't realize you could just run by him, so I like grinded forever to get to a level and I couldn't beat him. So I was like, all right, and then I went on to something else. I was like, man, this is challenging. And then I read on the internet where it's like, just run past it. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I knew you were supposed to run past it on a chocobo, but I don't know if my game glitched or if I broke it unintentionally. I I finally caught a chocobo and then I accidentally like got off it and it ran away and then I could never catch another one.
Oh, really?
And so instead of grinding to try and beat the snake by hand, I sat there at the lake edge and I watched its path and I memorized the like where it was and where it was going next and I waited till it was as far away from me as it could possibly get and then I sprinted across the lake and I just made it on foot.
That's great. That game was awesome. I really like that game. I kind of want to rebuy it and just see if it holds up. But this one, I think this remake's going to be cool. It seems like they're going way more in depth on a lot of stuff. But if they make an entire game from the first, I don't know, maybe sixth of the original game, or how many episodes is this going to be?
Yeah, it could be a lot. And not, like the other thing with the episodic is like it was in a world where there weren't really open world games. This was a fairly open world game. Like you were able to head out into the world map and just kind of wander from place to place, and there were characters who were optional, and there were characters who were required, and then there were whole like cities and parts of the games that you could miss if you didn't know they were there. Like I don't know how you handle something like that in an episodic release.
Right. And also too, like especially once you got the airship at the end, it was really more open world because you could go start doing the optional quests and finding like the whole chocobo breeding quest line to get gold chocobos and get Knights of the Round and stuff. So you're right. I don't know. Like if they get to like episode 3 and you get the high wind and then is it just the same world map the whole time?
Yeah, I guess. And then like with the later ones, you'll just have access to new quests. Maybe
Yeah.
it just seems
It's so
disjointed.
Yeah, and it's so annoying because people have been wanting a new Final Fantasy VII for, 23 years. And they finally get it. And it's this weird half measure where you don't even know if you're going to get the full remake. You're just like, you might only get one part. And it's, I feel like, the end of a console generation.
Yeah.
So who knows? I will play the demo, though. I am very interested just to see how the battle system plays out. All right, and now it's time for our Amazon review game. Just a quick recap on the rules of this one. I have a 5-star review for a movie from Amazon. I'm going to read it. Christian will get 2 yes or no questions to help him narrow down what the movie is. He can then ask for another review or guess. He'll get 2 more yes or no questions. He can get 1 more review, 2 more yes or no questions, and then he has to guess. If he gets it on the first try, he will get 3 points, 2 points for the second try, 1 point for the third try. Christian, are you ready?
I'm ready.
I caught this movie on cable after seeing all the media hype and deciding it was not something I wanted to risk paying for at the movies. What a mistake. This movie is laugh out loud funny. Nothing heavy or thoughtful here. Just good old-fashioned, mindless entertainment. After trying to describe scenes to friends and family, You must see the walk-off part to understand. I decided to buy the video and let the movie speak for itself. Ben Stiller is outrageously funny, and the whole movie premise is pure entertainment. If you are looking to be intellectually lifted, this is not the movie for you to watch. If you just want to see something that is hysterically funny and utterly mindless, you've got to see this one.
Does this movie have Robert Downey Jr.?
No. I don't believe so, at least.
Does this movie have Robert De Niro?
Again, I don't believe so. He may make a cameo, but I don't think so.
Then I'm going to need another review.
Okay. I laughed so much I almost wet my pants watching Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson. They made this movie a classic comedy. I think this may be the best cast ever assembled because they fit so perfectly. I made my family crazy quoting lines from this, like "Hello Earth" to Matilda, or a freak gasoline fight, and the characters' names are a riot. You have to laugh at the absurdity and vapid nature of Hansel. I mean, really, if you don't laugh while watching this, you don't have a funny bone. It's a must-see movie for people who love to laugh, and the soundtrack is fantastic. I would pay to see this movie again. I purchase the soundtrack and listen to it all the time. This is definitely a welcome addition to my movie collection.
We also used to play the soundtrack at the movie theater all the time. This has got to be Zoolander.
It is Zoolander.
Oh man, I forgot that movie existed. As soon as you said Hansel, I was like, oh yes.
I did not actually realize I picked two Ben Stiller movies for you in a row until like after you asked about RDJ.
Oh man. What weird movie.
Yeah, I was trying to pick a comedy that has a bad second one in it. But yeah, I forgot I asked Ben Stiller movie last week too.
Yeah, like all I could think of was Tropic Thunder, and I was pretty sure that had been our one last week, but I was like, maybe we just talked about it and it wasn't the one 2 weeks ago. Oh man, Zoolander.
Yeah, it's a fun man. I used to really like that movie, but my roommate in college would play it anytime we drank, so it would literally be on in the background 2 or 3 times a week. And for like 2 years. So I was just like, I hate this movie by the end of college.
Definitely see that happening.
All right, before we head out, Christian, what are you going to be checking out this week?
I'm going to be away for most of the week, so I'm not going to have a chance to do much. I'm going to start trying to work through my backlog. There's a couple movies on Netflix I want to get through. Fortunately, I'll be able to download those and watch them wherever. I guess I will say now that my pick for the movie we do next week is going to be Mr. Right. It's a Netflix original with Anna Kendrick and Sam Rockwell, where he plays a hitman and she's like his girlfriend who he's trying to like keep away from the life, I guess. It's like a romantic comedy action kind of thing. Otherwise, I'm going to be finishing up the book I've been reading on my Kindle, which is Starsight, so I'll probably talk a little bit about that next week as well.
Nice. I've not heard of Mr. Right, so I'm excited to check it out. I liked Anna Kendrick. We watched her in the Disney Plus original, right, Noelle?
Yeah. Yeah, it came out in 2015. I guess it just hit Netflix because it's in like the new stuff category. So I thought it was a new movie, but it's apparently a couple years old.
Cool. I honestly don't know what I'm going to be checking out this week. Our movie theater is a little bit limited. They are still playing Parasite, 1917, and Harley Quinn, which I've already seen. And then the other ones are The Invisible Man, which I already told you I won't be seeing. The Call of the Wild and Fantasy Island. Of those, Fantasy Island is the only one I am really interested in. The Call of the Wild looks really bad to me, and I don't think it's doing too good at the box office.
It's doing great at our theater. It's been our number one movie
Really?
all weekend. Yeah, I will tell
Huh.
you, my buddy went and watched Fantasy Island last night, and his words, I believe, verbatim, were, "It was as dumb as I expected and as entertaining as I expected." So I guess it's a little bit of both.
The only reason I kind of want to see that one is I think there was some controversy where it originally was not given a release for some political reason or something like that. I did not look into it. That's the only reason it was on my radar as even being something to watch.
That may have been The Hunt.
Okay, so maybe I'm thinking of The Hunt then.
'Cause The Hunt,
and
I think,
Fantasy
is-
Island has nothing to do with that.
The Hunt is, I think, loosely based on The Most Dangerous Game, so it's a bunch of people hunting other people. And it was like a weird political commentary movie that got canceled last year after one of the shootings.
Oh, you're right, Christian.
Now it is being released in a couple weeks.
I'm looking at Fantasy Island now, and is this just a remake of that old movie? Like Fantasy Island movie where like their dreams come true?
I think so, yeah. They go to this island and it's
Okay.
like they all have a wish and the island makes it real, but then makes it kill
It's like a
them or
monkey's
something.
paw, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I might not go see that then. Otherwise, video game wise, I restarted. Well, not restarted, but I continued on with Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I'm thinking that's going to be the next game I platinum. We'll see how it turns out, though. It's fun, but after being used to a certain style of combat in Bloodborne, this one feels a lot clunkier because it's more RPG based. So I don't know how long I'm going to be able to stick with it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, pretty late week then, Mr. Wright. Alright guys, thanks for checking out our episode. If you would like to contact us, you can reach us on Twitter at Gambots Network, or we can be reached by email at we're gambots.blog@gmail.com. If you're listening somewhere that you can rate, we'd appreciate it, as that will help us get a little bit of advertising out there. And also, we have finished creating our website. If you'd like to read any of our written reviews, that's gambotsnetwork.com. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thank you.